Hi everybody. For our TMP, we did pressure on students. I'm Grant.
I'm Noel.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm Nancy.
Pressure is a real problem all over the world, and we decided to do some research on pressure in schools in our country, the United States, and in schools in Asia. Pressure in American schools comes from a few key factors, such as influence of social media, the pressure on trying to fit in with our peers, and academic pressure. While pressure in Asian schools mainly revolve around unrealistic educational expectations. Pressure can result in both short-term and long-term effects, such as burnout, depression, isolation, and worst cases, suicide. And the question we constructed is for our TMP is, how can societal pressure affect American and Asian adolescent quality of life, short-term and long-term?
Societal pressures in both American and Asian schools can impact adolescents in secondary schools for quality of life, short and long term. This mainly shows in the identity struggles in American schools, while in Asian schools, most of it is fear of failure and living up to those academic standards that they are set on. However, this leads to many mental health challenges and long-lasting effects on personal development. But we can help them by providing mental health resources, help them redefine what success is in their eyes, and also educating the people around them why this type of pressure is really bad, such as parents and teachers.
So there are many societal impacts of pressure, and it varies around the world. For example, in Asia, there's a very competitive and academics-based society, while in America, there's also the element of social media, which can affect students' personal images and how they can compare themselves to others. So the environment has lots of factors such as pressure from parents and teachers, exams, such as here in America and in this school we have AP exams, but in China there's also the college entrance exam called the Gaokao. There's stress that comes from the difficult examination process and the preparation for it, along with lots of schoolwork. Competition, for example, competing for top spots in the class or for spots in top colleges. And all of this stress can lead to burnout, which can reduce academic performance.
For our ethic lens, we asked the question, is peer pressure from schools and parents morally acceptable? Some of the positive effects of pressure is encourages discipline and hard work, which allows the students to develop a strong work ethic that they will need to be able to have moving forward in life. It also builds resilience under pressure, which allows students to handle more stressful situations, like if they have multiple things to do in a limited amount of time for multiple projects in their company. It also improves academic performance, teaches responsibility and self-control, which are also a few key skills that students need to be able to develop moving forward in life. However, some negative effects are it causes anxiety, depression, and burnout, which obviously isn't good for students' mental health. And according to a Chinese study, it often links to suicidal thoughts. Some other negative effects of pressure is parents tend to pressure students to meet unrealistic standards, which violates the students' emotional well-being and causes the negative effects, like I said before, such as burnout, depression, isolation, and in worst cases, suicide.
So from a futuristic lens, there can be short-term stress caused by all of this anxiety, but there are also lasting effects such as mental and physical damages, anxiety disorders, and more, which is why this is so critical to address early on from when the stress is all starting.
So our first solution is to promote mental health resources. This in the short term gives the students help what they need to talk about, or like it also helps them to lead to less burnout and better academic performance, but it also gives them someone to talk to, because sometimes they're not in an environment where they're able to speak out how they actually feel. However, some cons to this solution is that not every student is going to be convinced by it, or they don't believe it will work. And if you don't have the right person, you can have a lack of clear guidance or misidentification. So they might say that you have like a certain disorder, but in reality it's just something very different. Another one of our solutions is redefining success. This way when we say redefining success, we're letting them change their perspective that life is not just about how you look or academics. There's more to life to that. But so it encourages individual growth outside of their previous lens, and it reduces unhealthy competition, especially towards the academic area. However, this is very difficult to convince and change adolescents' viewpoint on how they believe in, as they're very stubborn, and it may put pressure on them to excel in new areas now, to be more well-rounded.
Okay, so we need to educate parents and teachers about this problem, and some pros would be that it would encourage these parents to be less hard on their already stressed students, so it could prevent any like serious problems from developing. And then it will also encourage the teachers to assign less work to prevent burnout for these students. However, cons may be that, once again, these parents and teachers may be too unwilling to change and stick to their old habits, which could also cause the student to be more confused as for what should they do, like the situation, should they keep going, fighting for what they want. And our final solution is that they should have regular mental health checkups, like school surveys, and there should be like peer support groups, like clubs, and there should be a counselor and therapists on campus. However, a limitation may be that these counselors, therapists may be too expensive to afford, and that there are limited amounts of these professionals, and these students may not be willing to open up and tell the teachers or parents about the problems they're facing. Okay, in conclusion, pressure in school environments have a lasting negative impact on these students' futures, and parents and teachers should be aware of such problems and help prepare and limit these consequences before it's too late. And one helpful task would be implementing mental health resources. And these are our references.